40 to 60-year-old people are probably interested in this.
This is another episode of the Flight Ringers podcast. I'm David King. That's Dan Spottswood.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
We are professional cartoonists, and we are Legion of Superheroes experts. This time around, we're looking at the Legion of Superheroes, the Baxter Paper Era, number 50.
Volume 3.
It's by Paul Levitz, Keith Giffen, inked by Mike DiCarlo, cover by Ken Stacy. Ken Stacy had kind of a big run doing these kind of airbrushed covers. This one's pretty cool.
I thought Ken Stacy might have been a Kansas City person, but maybe that was Rick Stacy.
That's Rick Stacy.
Damn.
Is he Kansas City or is he Topeka? I feel like
he might be Topeka, but I think he taught at the Art Institute here for a little while. And he's like, at least in the smaller days, the smaller con days, he was like a staple. He's probably still there. His name is buried under all the movie stars.
Right. Yeah, I remember always seeing his name or on the flyers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he ever did in comics. Do you?
No, other than how to draw comics,
But yeah, that's Rick Stacy or Rick Stassi, different guy.
Yes.
Ken Stacy is the cool airbrush painter. And these you really got to see in person versus the ones they have online on like DC Universe Infinite Online. They're terrible. They look like utter garbage. They owe Ken Stacy an apology for the way these appear on their website. They're all smoothed out and like unsharp masked and stuff.
Yeah.
And like he uses, it's not as evident on this one as some of the other ones where he kind of puts some highlights on with like a colored pencil or some kind of grainy, chalky,
right,
textured stuff at the end. And that's eradicated on the digital versions.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever thought of that before, but we have an idea of what they do when they remaster or recolor line art, but it must be an entirely different process for like painted works.
Well, it shouldn't be hard, but evidently they have their thing they do, and it doesn't look pleasant up close. Like,
but they would be scanning it with the color, right? They wouldn't be rebuilding it from scratch the way they do the color in a traditional comics page, where
that's true.
Just take the black and white line art and recolor it completely.
Right, but like we've talked about, they've kind of even started to move away from that, and they have some kind of process where they retain the Ben-Day Dots original color,
right,
and kind of somehow combine it with line art, and that's kind of what these look like online. Is like the logos and the little corner box. They're really crisp and sharp, as if they had like a photostat, or something that they can just paste on it and it looks really bright. But the cover artwork is, it's manipulated and very weird looking.
Yeah. Looking at them side by side, they are pretty different.
Yeah.
The digital one is much bluer, at least the one I'm looking at is.
I'll try to put them side by side, I guess, on this video. Maybe a scan or a photo of the actual comic, because it's a little bit glary and washed out right now.
So did we mention this came out, it hit the newsstands on May 24th, 1988. The cover date is September of 88. And the story is called Life and Death at the End of Time.
Life and Death and the End of Time.
And I'm not sure about you, Dave, but David.
Do not call me Dave.
Sorry. It was an accident. This was a big one for me. Like, if I had to pick, like, I don't know that I could rank like the best issues I've ever read of it, but I could probably gather. My house was on fire and I could only grab 10 and I could never replace any of them. This would be one of the 10. Like, this is a pretty big issue, at least for me.
Me too. This is one of the top ones. I think I mean, to be honest, I think the last time I read it, I liked it better than when I read it for this episode. But
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's still kind of fresh in my mind, or maybe I was just looking for something to be critical of or something. But
Right.
no, like really good comic book, really good Legion comic book. Not without its flaws, but as far as like stuff that happens and like the whole package, really solid comic.
Mm-hmm.
This is the return of Keith Giffen as the penciler and co-plotter, and so it has a fresh look, I
Right.
guess. I think his style has evolved a little bit. He last drew Legion back on like issue 5 of this, and now we're at 50, and so his style has changed a little bit. It's been 3 years, 4 years.
Right. Except, I mean, he did some stuff here and there. Like a few issues previous, he did a few pages of the anniversary issue, the Lightning Lad Luck Lord story. Uh, yeah. I think he might have drawn one of the annuals, but he has kept his hand in. He hasn't ever completely left the Legion, because also in that time he did or was involved in the Cosmic Boy series and the Legionnaires 3 series. And I believe I've read more than once that he was still kind of talking with Levitz and giving they were brainstorming on stuff. So I think he may have had some sway in the direction of the stories even while he was gone, which would make sense because this is his first issue back, and they're not wasting any time. There's no build up at all. We're right. Like, this seems like the conclusion to a bigger story that has been going on for a while.
Oh yeah, this is. I mean, you can look at those, the Cosmic Boy miniseries, the Legionnaires 3 miniseries. They're time trapper stories. You could like almost collect these into a book. You know, like those miniseries are they're kind of Giffen and Levitt's little side projects. Those 8 issues, this one, maybe even throw in, 5 years later, issue 4, and just have this time trapper saga, I guess, in a way.
You'd have to have Death of Superboy also.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's why this issue even happened, right? They're avenging Superboy's death in this issue.
Allegedly. I think Brainiac 5 might have other motives, more selfish motives, but yeah.
But yeah, sometime I think maybe I would like to read it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be about 12 issues of comics. That is the whatever, the 1988 Time Trapper omnibus or whatever.
Right. The issue previous too maybe was building up to this too, right? Didn't they actually show like Mon-El trying to bring like a dwarf star into the headquarters?
Oh yeah, I think the conspiracy thing was kind of spread out a little bit in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Just to bring our viewers up to speed, we should say that this is a story where a handful of Legionnaires, they have the plan to, for once and for all, kill arch villain the Time Trapper in retaliation for his destruction of their best bro Superboy, and also I guess just because they don't like him. He's an asshole.
They've had it with him.
Brainiac 5 wants a monopoly on fucking around with time travel.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they want revenge for what was done to Superboy, who was the inspiration for the Legion.
Right. The story starts here in the Time Trapper's domain at the end of time, which it's kind of weird. Like, I guess the end of time is actually a specific point in time and not just after everything's concluded, I guess.
Right.
And in those earlier miniseries, in Legionnaires 3, he actually had like a big citadel. And actually, if you go even back farther, there's the John Fort designed Time Trapper headquarters, which is like this very bizarre looking building that's like in this wasteland.
Yeah, they seem. I don't know when they got the idea. I suspect it was Giffin's, not Levitz's, because he had worked with the Time Trapper a few times before the '80s. But they seem to be moving him away from being like one of their more powerful enemy types, just regular intergalactic supervillain types, to a more like a force of nature, like a god, or even more than that, like a Galactus like figure. And especially in the last two or three appearances that he's had between uh, Legionnaires 3, which Ernie Cullen drew, and then the Cosmic Boy series, and the Superman. Each time he's tweaked a little bit more, and he seems a little more aloof and a little more godlike. And like in the Legionnaires 3 stories, it seems very Star Warsy. He has like a bunch of like sci-fi henchmen and a very high-tech headquarters. Uh, by the time you get to, I think, the Death of Superman stuff, then he seems to be surrounded by all kinds of geometric lights and stuff, and he's kind of in a void, which sort of makes more sense. And here we're seeing like this is like the last moments of the universe. This is entropy everywhere. Everything is, there's no sign of any like tech or troops or working for him or anything. He's beyond all that. He doesn't need any of that. It's more like a god.
Yeah, and they sort of hint that, like in these 2 pages, they sort of hint that there's, at what used to be some civilization, like this is clearly, some human made kind of building that's being rotted away by
Mm-hmm.
all this erosion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sort of like you can see a little bit of like intricate archway type of stuff here and
Mm-hmm.
this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that must be a Giffen thing where he's evolving the world of the time trapper.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also kind of strange that he's doing that. It's as if the time trapper who lives at the end of time is also subject to the passage of time. When
Right.
they kind of want us to think that he has control over all of it, but also he's living through stuff.
Right. I guess I take it like entropy is like his domain or something. Like it works for him in a way that it doesn't for anything else alive. Like he thrives in entropy, and yeah, like it's like his very environment is progressively breaking down. It's more like he's devolving than evolving. Like everything is becoming more and more decimated.
The storytelling on these first 2 pages it's a little confusing. I feel like the crew making this artwork maybe didn't quite know what Giffen was going for in some ways. The colorist for sure didn't. I feel like didn't know what to do with this. Carl Gafford, colorist. It just looks a little strange.
Mm.
And then I took this page and in Photoshop I stripped all the color out of it
Uh-huh.
just to try and see what, like, storytelling wise, like if I get an idea of what's even happening. It feels like these 3 panels just in here just look like random views of this end of time ruins of civilization,
Mm-hmm.
and then a big panel of time trapper.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look back here, it looks like there's a stairway and maybe another stairway, and then here in the foreground is stairs. I think we're supposed to be like a point of view that's like following its way down through some 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 kind of ruins down into like a pit, and you can see the
Right.
stairway here behind time trapper. And I feel like maybe even Mike DiCarlo didn't get that maybe this is a stairway here, even though it just looks like some kind of shale rocks piled
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm. in the top middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's doing his best, and he's doing a good job of like putting a thicker edge on certain things to delineate the different planes of view.
Uh-huh.
But I think this whole page maybe needed something else to get the storytelling that Giffen intended through to us. And I think the coloring is a little off. Like this thing that Time Trapper is looking at, you can see
Mm-hmm.
there's this little glare thing right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is supposed to be a shiny mirror or a crystal ball thing that he's looking at, but it's just colored this kind of yellow brown. See how there's this arch shape?
Mm-hmm.
Right at the top of that is like a sparkle.
Oh, I see it. I see it. It's colored the same. It's colored the same way. Well, I'm looking at the actual comic. Yeah, it doesn't look like a sparkle because it's colored the same yellow
Right, but it's
as the
drawn
rest
like
of
a
it.
sparkle. Like if you
Right.
take the
Yeah.
color out, it looks like a lens flare or something, like a glare.
So does it hold up very well without the color? I'm sure it kind of looks good, all the lines, but I mean, it seemed like they did put all these different colors to try to make sense of the
Yeah,
lines.
it's total nonsense without the color.
Right.
I feel like though, even with this color, it's still kind of nonsense
Right.
because all you can really understand about it is the bright magenta time trapper,
Right.
which in a way that's good. That really draws your attention on this page to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of this other stuff is not quite right, and I feel like this panel is even kind of it's meant to be a down shot. Like you see the top of the stairs and you see the top of whatever this cake shape thing is,
Mm-hmm.
but the coloration, it doesn't really put that over at all. Like the extreme foreground is just this green color.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I think it was just confusing for everybody except for Giffen, and he
Right.
didn't share the memo with everyone. So I think that's a weakness here. I wish it looked a little bit better or was more clear.
Yeah.
So, next page is Timberwolf and Ultra Boy kind of giving us a little exposition, talking about how Ron de Vidar, who had been dead, showed up alive, and they're like collecting some stuff for, or this group of legionnaires who has been plotting to take out the time trapper. It had been a secret up until maybe last issue, and now everybody's on board. And they're going to see Circadia Senius at the Time Institute.
Right. And I think this is the first we see of Ultra Boy's new look, or the beginnings of his new look, anyway. Kind of a more
Oh, yeah. Giffen has started redesigning all the costumes, and also Timberwolf kind of has a new look.
right.
Like he has never looked like this before. I don't think. Like there was the kind of the way that Steve Lytle drew him,
Mm-hmm.
where he had long sideburns, and then there was the way that Giffen drew him, this kind of handsome guy with kind of a page boy haircut, kind of, or just kind of a
Or the
'70s look.
Gil Gerard big hair.
That's right,
Now
the
he
Gil
has
Gerard
more of
look.
a kind of like I see like young hipsters with hair like this today, like kind of a full head of hair on top, but cut pretty short on the sides, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, like he's
fading
got
up.
wavy hair and he's got pointy eyebrows. His face is
Oh
kind of
wait,
drawn long and narrow.
maybe it's a Vanilla Ice cut. Was he out yet? It looks like part of his eyebrows cut out.
I don't think Vanilla Ice had been out yet.
Mm,
Even Ultra Boy has sort of a new haircut too. I don't know how long
right,
that sticks around, but yeah, Giffen and DeCarlo are kind of they're really going for it in making these guys look fresh.
right. It's the beginning. I think he's slowly transitioning things towards 5 years later. I believe he kind of had that in mind from the moment he took over. Um, I was reading in an interview with him in the Legion Companion that part of the reason he was coming back was because Paul was leaving. So, in agreeing to take over as artist again, he was also agreeing to be in charge of the series after Paul left. He knew that at
Mm-hmm.
this point.
Yeah, it gave him a lot of lead time, right? From
Mm-hmm.
like this goes from 50 and then it ends at 63. So he's doing it for a year, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's an annual too that he's in charge of. So that's quite a bit of material.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Giffen had been working on it. I don't think we've talked about any of them yet, but there's a bunch where he has, like, if you know, you can see that he has done the breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he plotted them, but he did the breakdowns on a ton of the Greg LaRocque issues prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just another way that he always had his hand in this comic. They're getting a time cube from Circadia Senius. And then we cut to 3 other Legionnaires. They're on another little mission. And now we're back in the multi lab of Brainiac 5 at Legion headquarters. And Giffen's really gone crazy with the technology architecture, I guess. Like
Right.
everything has little access panels and little grills and heat sinks and stuff all over it. And in this panel, like they're going all diagonal.
He seems to be getting more and more obsessed with texture, adding like textures to help define, large swaths of space. Pretty soon we're going to start seeing like stains and creeping up on all the clothes and cracks on everything. But here, before everything has fallen apart, it's taken the form of like panels and extra lines on all the walls.
Yeah. As I was reading it this time around too, like, I don't know, I was just kind of thinking how, like, just how little that actually adds to it. Like, it's a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
and it gives it a little bit of environment, but it's also in a way overwhelming and unnecessary, I guess. That there's just so much of all those little panels and doors and things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess that becomes like kind of a Giffen stock and trade, is that it's not unlike this page where outside of the figure you have almost no idea what he's
Uh-huh.
drawing.
Right. I
Um,
feel like that's almost like it's become very like modern superhero comics are filled with that. I feel like way more than they used to be. Like thick bold lines defining all the figures and places, and then lots of thinner lines spider webbed all over everything, or even like just little dashes, just smaller marks inside of thicker shaped lines.
I wonder where that comes from. Is it just like people looking at like artists like Jeff Darrow and Art Adams or something, and Mobius, and just trying to get that look, even though like those guys, they have a I mean, they have like upper echelon skill level, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
then also like they do that stuff to, like, they know their business enough to make that stuff add up to something,
Mm-hmm.
where you could also just like start drawing little lines everywhere and it kind of looks like Art Adams, but then it also doesn't add up to anything or doesn't add anything to your storytelling. And I kind of think that's almost what Giffen has going here, is like
Right.
it's just not quite enough to fill up the pages with lines. It
Right.
just becomes like a mess of stuff eventually.
I think with some artists it has to do with working digitally, and like I think it sometimes makes a digital drawing look more organic or feel more organic when you have like lots of extra little lines all over it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think artists often have like each artist has his own density per square inch of page, like that they feel comfortable with a certain amount of line. And Giffen usually works a lot smaller than this. These are bigger panels than he's been using. Even at this time, he was using the 9 panel grid quite a lot in other comics. So you have like a big panel like of those buildings on the page before. Maybe it just feels unfinished to him unless he adds more lines in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love looking at this,
Mm-hmm.
but it's I don't know, story wise, it's really meaningless, and it's just a lot of the same.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about it. I appreciate that he's really uh, like um like he's really upping the game of the environments of
Mm-hmm.
Time Trapper's Domain, 30th Century Metropolis,
Mm-hmm.
the interior of the multi lab. But it also
Right.
is just a lot of the same as you go through this.
Right.
They color it a little differently. Like if you imagine this comic in black and white,
Uh-huh.
it's just I don't know. It seems like it would be. I mean, I know he didn't draw it intended for black and white, but it would be really confusing and strange.
Right. Um, I don't know if it factors in or not, but I think he had a lot more time to work on this than he normally gives himself because I was looking at uh, the comic database and at him specifically and what was coming out that had been done by him month to month. And he around this period of his life, he was working like crazy. In addition to doing the breakdowns on the Justice League books, he would be there are a few months where at least three, sometimes four different books would come out that he drew. And who knows, maybe some of those were delayed and they just all happened to land at the same time. But this was like one of the sparsest months of that period of his career. Like the only other book that he drew this month was like 2 pages of the last issue of Video Jack. But like the month before, he was doing like I think two New Universe books and a couple of DC books. Like, so I wonder if he had more time to put into this than he normally does.
I guess I would think that he probably had more time for the drawing aspect. Like if I guess I feel like for a long period he was on Justice League where he was doing breakdowns, I guess, but he wasn't doing full drawings of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that freed him up a little bit. Whereas, but I guess he's always been fast. Like if you look back at like his previous Legion run, like he also
Mm-hmm.
drew Omega Men at the same time for a handful of issues, not for very long. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like this dude is totally capable of drawing 3 comic books a month, evidently.
I read that uh, some blogger, I think, theorized that part of the reason he moved into doing mainly breakdowns was because of the plagiarism controversies. Like DC was kind of pulling him back and not giving him as high profile of work. And I don't know that this guy knew it for a fact, but um, like right when that controversy had happened, like he stopped doing as much work, and he seemed to focus more on doing like breakdown work.
Yeah, I mean that kind of happened after he left, after the beginning of, or I guess maybe about the same time as the beginning of the Baxter Legion series.
Mm-hmm.
Because after that he did Ambush Bug, which had some of the swiped panels in it.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah Hex, I think. I've seen multiple interviews with Giffen where he's like, the only work I could get was this Jonah Hex thing where he's in the
Mm-hmm.
future, which he did about 4 issues of it maybe at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
series.
I wonder if maybe they were just keeping him off like higher profile books. Like he could only do if he was going to do Justice League, he had to be the breakdown guy, not the artist. But if it was a book that they knew was going to be canceled within a year, because
And that would also explain why he's doing like new
yeah,
universe stuff over at
right.
Marvel for a little bit.
Because even though it does seem like he's cooled off in this period, he is doing a lot of work still. He's still drawing a lot of stuff. It's lots of random one shots, lots of books that are just about to get canceled too.
Mm-hmm. Back to the story. On this page, it looks. I think I like this drawing of Mon-El here. It looks pretty. I don't know. There's some real intelligence or something in this drawing of Mon-El. And I also noticed as I went through this issue, there's a lot of lettering corrections or like after the fact additions. You can tell that like right here where Ron Vidar says no time for a nap, is there? Like that's added later on as if Giffen put it in the artwork and then somebody looked at it and was like, oh, we need to say what Rond is doing here. He's in this weird pose and touch up his dialogue. But there's a couple other things where just like little articles have been changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not totally sure what the purpose is. I'll try to point them out if we see him again. But
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Looking at the nap one, I don't think I would have spotted that right off.
mm-hmm.
When
To me,
you can usually tell when it's like overly expositional in a comic this late. Like everything's overly has way too much exposition in like the 60s, but when it pops out of nowhere in an 80s comic, like the editor looked at it and they're like, nobody's going to know what he's doing here. You need him to say what he's doing to explain this drawing a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, I feel like this is a really big issue. So maybe there was
mm-hmm.
a lot of moving parts that they wanted to make sure got over.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they had it done in advance, so they had time to look at it after the fact, after all the artwork is finished.
Right.
Something like that. And
that would make sense here. Like maybe there was no line at all down here and he's just making this weird pose. He looks really strange. So they said, we need to point out that he's yawning.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Why they wouldn't just put a yawn? I don't know. But
yeah, a little like yawn sound effect above him or something.
Right.
But yeah, who knows? But yeah, so now the whole team is involved in making this some kind of gizmo
mm-hmm.
that Brainiac 5 has dreamed up that uses a time cube. And I don't know, a bunch of other stuff, all this pastel colored multi-lab stuff to go and take out the time trapper.
He seems way too big.
Who, Brainiac 5?
Right, he's the furthest figure, and he's gigantic compared to, like, say, Bouncing Boy.
Yeah, in general, the perspective and the scaling is right, except for that.
Right.
Which is kind of weird. I feel like Giffen's having some trouble drawing Sensor Girl. She looks a little different. I feel like Lytle and even LaRock kind of knew their game on her.
Right.
And Giffen can't quite nail it yet. He actually changes her costume altogether eventually, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. He does.
But I kind of like the Dream Girl here. And White Witch, I don't think he's got a good handle on the design of White Witch in his newest style.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, she looks cute. I just don't feel like she looks like she used to.
Right. I guess I liked it. I think she looks a little less snobby and a little less aristocratic, which I kind of like. Maybe a little more childlike, more like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
I guess they're not teenagers anymore at this point, though, right?
I don't know. On this page, they're bringing in, what's his name? Infinite Man, Rugarth. What's his first name?
Is it Jackson?
Yeah, I guess it's Jason.
Yeah, Jackson Rugarth.
I think it's Jason.
Well, it's right there, friend.
Is it? Oh, it's Jackson with an X. All right, I'll start over again. On this page, they're bringing in Jackson Rugarth, who we also know as the Infinite Man. He's part of Brainiac 5's plan. But he's at this point, he's comatose, and they're having a little bit of a debate between White Witch, who doesn't believe that a person is dead if they don't have brain activity or they're vegetative. Meanwhile, everybody else is like, nah, he's brain dead. we're going to use him in our plan against his will. And she gets so pissed that she leaves. And this is one of those things. If you look at the digital version on DC Universe Infinite, they can't get these color hold right on the website. This looks like utter garbage on there. Anything that's color hold, like her disappearing, this stuff on the monitor is just a blurred out mess. They haven't figured out how to pull those off, or I guess it just takes extra effort. I feel like they get them right in the reprint books sometimes, but the digital ones always look terrible in my experience.
It seems like it would be easier, but what do I know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, I want to know, like, did she like fart before she disappeared, or is she like is she like Nightcrawler and she leaves the smell of brimstone, like a polar boy there is pinching his nose, going woo?
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that he was holding his nose.
Right.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know, man.
It must be. She must leave the smell of. What'd you say? Sulfur? Is that what?
Yeah, they call it brimstone in
Right.
the X-Men comics. The Nightcrawler guy when he teleports in a puff of smoke.
Probably is. It's this 100% magenta odor.
Yes.
They put Jackson Rugarth in some kind of thing, and they're going to revive him or send him back into the infinite endless cycles of time, and I guess get him spinning, get some centrifugal force going on Infinite Man to maybe come and help them if they need it.
Right.
They show him here in dead center of the page, which I think makes for kind of a neat layout. This sort of pensive face of Infinite Man Jackson Rugarth with these colors swirling around him.
Right. It's like a memory or the idea of him, right? Though that isn't super obvious if you're looking. The panel, that panel and the panel Brainiac 5 kind of look like one panel. But I mean, the idea is obvious that he's not literally in the room talking to them.
Right. Yeah, he's like they show him here through glass or something. But yeah, this is not. Yeah, I don't think the Legionnaires see this.
Right. Because he's still Jackson. Unless, I guess maybe they could be looking at a monitor of the last time he showed up or something, but I don't think so.
Yeah, something. It's kind of an interesting page, I think, in that. Like, I wish these word balloons were not hanging over the Rugarth panel.
Right.
But yeah, he isn't held in by any panel borders. It's kind of cool.
Right.
And then Bouncing Boy is down here. He has a mustache. I don't know if they showed him with a mustache, but here he is front and center with a silly pencil mustache.
I think this is its first appearance.
Mm-hmm. It's a key issue, first appearance of Bouncing Boy's mustache. So up to this point, the Legionnaires, the whole team, thought they were going to be in on this revenge plot, but Brainiac 5, Saturn Girl, Mon-El, Duo Damsel, and Ron Vidar have separated themselves from the rest of the group. Brainiac 5 throws up a force field, and they disappear.
Yeah, they punked him.
Yeah, they got punked.
Brainiac 5 almost seems a little dickish about it. Like, no, that won't be necessary.
Oh, yeah.
After we've gotten you to do all the work for us.
They didn't do too much work. I think Mon-El did most of the work. Mon-El and Brainiac 5.
Mm-hmm.
Those other guys, they collected a time cube. That's about it.
Right.
But so now they're in the time stream, and it looks all fiery and cool. I don't remember what this page looks like, or what the other page. The whole panel probably looks like garbage on the digital version too, because it's all color hold.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
But these guys are. I think this is Rugarth's face here, maybe. He's kind of out there. I
Right.
think they're using Infinite Man's power somehow to give them a boost to break. Is it the Iron Curtain of Time? Somehow
Yeah.
they need extra power to go to where the Time Trapper is.
Right.
And I think Ron Vidar was not meant to be with them, but he is.
That is true. He's a stowaway.
Exactly.
And they don't entirely trust him because they don't understand why he's not dead.
Oh,
And
that's right.
he refuses to explain.
And so they appear at the end of time. It's not colored quite right. This is, I guess, the time cube sort of phasing into existence here, but it's really blends in with the top of that mountain or the sky and stuff. You can't really see it till you get over here. And then there's a giant time trapper confronts them.
It's pretty great. You definitely see that there's been a major step up in the way they're depicting his power here. Like, this is his world. They're like playthings to him.
The nice printing in the Baxter paper makes these blacks look extra black and deep.
Mm-hmm.
The facelessness of Time Trapper looks real cool compared to how it would look on newsprint with this blotchy kind of black with some magenta overlaying the black that looks all crappy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's sort of a neat effect where the point of view is seeing Brainiac 5 through his force field, and there's these sort of like horizontal cyan colored lines, like a CRT effect or something, but that's looking through his force field. It's on these two panels. And Time Trapper easily breaks through the force field.
Right.
And starts kicking their asses.
I'm also noticing now, and I don't think I saw it earlier, he's got these very visible like splotches all over his robe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was on page 2.
It was.
It wasn't colored, but it's drawn on there.
Yeah, I think it works better not colored.
Yeah.
Al Gordon this way.
Al Gordon in the next series, in the volume 4 or 5 years later, really has mastered that kind of cruddy stuff that Giffen will draw on whatever old or decaying things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does not look good colored, just gray on here.
Yeah, it's kind of like how in older comic books, like the simple way of depicting water getting on your shirt or something. You know, they just color it watercolored, all splotched on your shirt or whatever.
Yeah. Time Trapper the giant Time Trapper picks up their time cube and crushes it. So I guess we're supposed to believe now that they're stuck at the end of time. And he's already taken out Mon-El. Here's this kind of a classic Giffen panel where it's just a tiny figure on all white negative space.
Color hold.
I'm not sure what happens on this page. The Time Trapper allows Saturn Girl to read his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "No, it can't be." And then it fries her head, which is pretty messed up. Like they show the aftermath of this a little bit later, and she's in bad shape.
Yeah, and we discussed this once, I think a few years ago, how I suspected, it's my fan theory, that she realized it was Cosmic Boy. But that's just my fan.
Well, yeah, they reveal that it's Cosmic Boy, but way, way later.
Right.
I mean, is it? I don't remember if it's like a mystery at this point, even of who he is. Like in earlier issues, they said he was a renegade member of the Controller race.
Right.
But then I think they even backpedaled on that.
I do feel like it means that it is someone, maybe, because I mean, I would totally understand, like, she's trying to read this god's mind and it fries her brain or something and she screams in pain. But she's saying, no, it can't be. Like, what else could she mean by that?
Well, she says she wants to know if he's really a man, immortal, or entropy incarnate? Maybe when she reads his mind, she realizes that whatever she might have thought he is, he's not that. He's something else. I can't believe it, or whatever. You know?
Like he really is in entropy incarnate, you
Yeah,
mean?
or really there is nothing there, or there's infinity there when I read his mind.
Fair enough.
Because I don't, in this issue definitely they don't ever say like who is he really, you know, like that's not even a question on their mind.
Jeez, Dave. You destroyed my dream, David.
Well, I mean, you could still be right too. It's up for interpretation. I like this pose of him like giant trapper holding Brainiac 5 like he just picked him out of his nose or something and flicks him away. Booger.
Totally insignificant to him. His arrogance means nothing to him. And this is where, of course, we see Brainiac 5 crying a little here, saying that he stole his dream or dreams. And this is what makes me wonder, like, is he even here for Superboy, or is he just pissed off because he thought he was the genius who figured out how to travel through time, and it turned out he was just being manipulated by the time trapper all this time? So it's like more about his hubris than about his comrade.
Right. I mean, I feel like he had dreams of maybe not being this prideful guy who's the big brains of time travel, but like this guy who could harness the knowledge of the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as a Koluan who, like those guys want to catalog and know everything, and
Mm-hmm.
he had devised a way to know even more than we ever thought we could because he had access to every moment of the past. And then the time trapper turned that upside down, and everything that Brainiac 5 thought he knew about the past could be wrong. It actually seems like it's pretty much on the ball, but time trapper messed that up for him.
Right. I suppose another more charitable interpretation could be related to Supergirl. Sort of disappears along with Superman or Superboy after Crisis.
I think all of those things are more charitable than saying he's just wanted to be the time travel guy and lord it over everybody.
I don't know. I still feel like there's more pointing to his arrogance, but
yeah,
it could be a combination of things.
Yeah, just reading this issue out of the blue, I'm still remembering the nice guy Brainiac 5. Even though whatever last week we read issue 250 where he turns out to be a very arrogant, psychotic killer, all that stuff is going to destroy the universe.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just.
But he is going through. I'm not saying he's a full out dick, though. This is a pretty dickish moment here. But I think they do spend a lot of time on him being very disillusioned once he realized that the time trapper was the one really sending them back to Pocket Earth.
Right.
And like earlier in this, like Circadium. He asked why they're even grabbing the time cube. Like he's like, didn't you hear? Like they don't work. It's all bunk.
Yeah, and I guess they do make Brainiac 5 the most upset by all of that because there's that conversation earlier that Ultraman and Timberwolf are having, and they're sort of agnostic about the whole thing, about all that history being incorrect. But yeah, Brainiac 5 is it's been his scientific, or one of his big scientific endeavors was to crack the time travel.
Kind of his life's work.
But he takes out Brainiac 5 here. He's taken out Monel, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, and then the next page he's got the next Legionnaire to smash, Duo Damsel. She says, "You killed my first love," referring to Superboy, and I never even told him how I felt. Like that's still her big plot thing.
Right.
Duo Damsel's love with Superboy. I don't know. They need to do a whole issue where Duo Damsel and Bouncing Boy talk it out. You know, like she still seems like she may be holding a candle for Superboy.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't pass the Bechdel test.
because all she ever does is talk about Superboy.
I do love the response, like love how ephemeral. It's like perfect for the Mr. Entropy, Mr. Eternity there.
I don't quite get what she's trying to do here. She says, "You may have caught one of me, Time Trapper, but let's see if you can hold both." And then she's going to use her powers, which, I mean, it's like the bare minimum, like the absolute. That's all she can do is use her power to split from one person into two. And I don't know what she thinks that will do to the Time Trapper.
Yeah, I used to think that maybe he disintegrated one of the two of them, but if he has her like trapped in a force field and she thinks she can break out by splitting, maybe she just like squashed half of her by doubling in size in that field. Like, did she kill herself basically?
It's really not clear what exactly happens to her other body. It's shown over here that I guess she's, I don't know, imploding or burning up or something. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what action has the sound of fashion, but
Right,
yeah, she's gone, and all that's left is the orange one.
right.
Um, but yeah, but she's out. She's down.
Yeah,
No more duo damsel.
exposing a little of a little ass there. There's a hole in her butt cheek.
Oh, like her uniform's burned up.
Right, that got by the comics code. Did this? No, they weren't reprinting by now, right? They didn't. They never made it this far in Tales, right?
Oh no, they didn't get up to 50. I don't know. I can't remember how far they went, but I'm pretty sure they didn't reprint 50 at all.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like 30 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it went up to 354 from 314, so they reprinted 40 issues.
Well, I wonder if there was anything in those that they had to change for the newsprint. I mean,
Oh,
they dropped the occasional damn, and I don't know
yeah, I don't think
what the
so.
rules were back then.
I don't think they changed anything. She says, "No, no, not again." I don't know. I think this is kind of a silly dialogue for her to say. They could have left out these word balloons and it would have been maybe
Mm-hmm.
more effective.
Right.
Monel, he's back and he zaps Time Trapper with heat vision. Time Trapper looks kind of cool, kind of inflated with heat here.
Yeah, it's a very non-heroic. I mean, this is about revenge, but yeah, he's screaming die.
Yeah. Well, he gets his attention first over here.
Right.
He's like, "Hey, Trapper, die."
Knock knock. He's there.
And then, yeah, there's just Time Trapper just uses the air to beat up Monel.
Right. Right, and it's very reminiscent of, well, not reminiscent because this is first uh, issue 4 of 5 years later. There's a pretty similar thing happening to Monel, where there's like these bamfs,
Mm-hmm.
these puffs um,
Yeah,
of
I'll have to look at that again. It almost seems like it's the reverse, right? It's like almost. I
mm-hmm,
wonder if they went back and just did a mirror of it
mm-hmm,
where Monel gets the upper hand on these
right,
whatever.
because it does. There is sort of a like that kind of feels like it's part of this. Like I think you might have mentioned that before. Like it's almost like a sequel in some ways.
Right.
That confrontation. Um, another um, scene where that sort of illustrates his infiniteness, I guess. He's talking down to Monel, and he says, "I would have thought your millennium of imprisonment would have taught you patience." More and more stuff just I don't know, it just ties to his sense of being like timeless, ageless, like and he's like, you were almost touching whatever infinite divinity I have, and you still don't understand.
Mm-hmm. And then this is another thing that I'm not quite sure what happened. Monel's here in the foreground. He's all beaten and abused. And then Time Trapper has this white light, I guess, shoots up out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what he's doing exactly. He says, feel entropy reaching for you, Monel. So I guess he's going to use his entropy powers to just rip apart Monel somehow.
He's like amping it up, yeah.
Or he's actually ripping apart everything, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah, because as it goes, it gets more of this white stuff. Is just he's getting rid of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brainiac 5 thinks they're cooked, but Ron Vidar shows up and shoots some green stuff. Ron Vidar is actually a Green Lantern.
I know a lot of people really like him as a Green Lantern. I think the costume is great, but he doesn't really do that much here. Like they present it like he's their ace in the hole. He's like their surprise that turns the tide here, but he gets dispensed with pretty quickly.
He does. He
shields them in the end.
Right.
I guess
that's his major.
That's the most valuable thing he does. But like the entire buildup and setup almost makes you think he's going to be revealed to be like an agent for whatever the opposite of the Time Trapper is, or something like something more directly antithetical to him. But I mean, I think the Time Trapper even says like, "Oh, you're just a Green Lantern. That doesn't mean shit to me."
Right. This page is kind of cool. Like it's some of that stuff that Giffen does, where hidden within the swirls is a bit of a drawing, like
wind or
here's Time Trapper's like his cowl and his face, and there's his hand. I guess this is Brainiac 5 down here. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe there's some other stuff that didn't get caught and colored this way. But it looks pretty cool. It kind of looks like, it reminds me of like who drew those Alan Moore Swamp Things? Like they had this look sometimes. John Toddleman stuff. Yeah, Bissett. Not quite like that, but a little bit like that.
Right. A lot of Bernie Wrightson stuff has that look too.
Time Trapper says, "This is the end of time, and I am its master. Look upon it and despair." So I guess this is what the end of time looks like, which it looks kind of cool. I think maybe Giffen had something else in mind for the color treatment on this, because this doesn't exactly look like, I don't know, this isn't what the color of the end of the universe looks like to me. Or the end time, rather.
I think he was clearly trying to go for like a big, like Jack Kirby style. I mean, he even has like the Kirby dots all over this, but it's kind of weird that it has these muted, almost pastel colors.
Yeah, and I think it's even kind of like, you see this part here seems like it's one planet, but it begins blue and then goes into kind of a dark tan and then a light tan, as if, I'm not sure, like the lighting just isn't quite right in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder, like, what if like that light lavender and the dark purple were inversed? Would it look better?
It might. Like if this white was against a lot darker color.
Right. And all the Kirby dots were lighter and the background was darker.
Right.
Would everything pop more?
Yeah, it probably would. And I don't know, there's like, you can see sort of like some shapes built into the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's supposed to be, I don't know, like jagged lines. Right. Maybe is what he envisioned coming off of these other planets and things.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I kind of wonder is if maybe he intended, another big part of Kirby's work that he kind of takes inspiration from in here is like the collages, the photo collages. Like, did he intend for some of that to be here? I'm not sure. But when Kirby would do scenes like this, he very often would collage photo into it.
Yeah, Giffen just tried to draw it, I guess.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll try and find these and take the color out of them, see what that looks like.
Mhm. Well, like the white here, like does he have to like give some direction to the colorist or the engravers or whoever to make that white?
I think so. He did that. He would do stuff where he would draw a red line on the original on a like or on a vellum overlay or something
Mm-hmm.
for the color hold stuff. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what he did here, and that's what those white things are.
I don't know. I just wonder if that light lavendery background, if that would be black, even if the Kirby dot stayed purple, but everything else was black. Like, I just think it might look really different. Like maybe a direction got lost or misinterpreted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like the color holds, the white
Mm-hmm.
emanation stuff here, and then yeah, the dark purple dots are probably on a separate overlay on the original artwork that
Uh-huh.
he turned in, and then the rest of the
Oh,
stuff that's black line is just black.
well, here's another question. Like, what are they emanating from? Was that meant to be on the other page where that green planet is? It's about the same size and place. Like,
I
what
guess.
is it, what is everything emanating from there?
See, I thought it was this. I thought this area here
Mm-hmm.
is the place that they were standing on, and then Time
Oh,
Trapper used his powers to start to dissolve it, and then this is
okay.
kind of that effect going out everywhere else. But I'm not sure. I mean, I like I do this in comics where it's
Uh-huh.
like you just draw a thing, abstract thing, and it has an effect in the story. I wish this was colored a little differently, but um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as far as like giving us a big picture
Sure.
of the end of time, this is pretty far out. They could have gone a little farther into it though.
Yeah, I mean, it being the only thing on these two pages, it communicated to me that something, grand just happened.
Right.
All right.
But Monel is still fighting him.
Well, first he shoves the time trapper into the sun, and then he goes and grabs a planet, stuffs it on top of him. And I guess it's the last sun in the universe, or this universe. Something about the whole thing reminds me of Pocket Earth because I think that it only had like one solar system or something. But it's the end of the entire universe, right?
This thing where Monel gets vaporized and the little burn lines, I guess, are kind of colored Caucasian flesh tone, kind of weirdly, kind of a weird experiment.
This feels like it could have been executed a little better, like the color or something. Like I was I've read this a bunch of times. I'm not sure I ever noticed his figure was there until we were like dwelling on this
Oh
page.
yeah,
And now I see it's really obvious, but
yeah. It almost seems like they should have. Oh, like let's say this is white hot energy or
right,
something. Maybe color inside of the Monel figure just
right.
yellow or like his.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it wouldn't be red because he doesn't have his costume anymore. But yeah, just to make it look like a burning up figure instead of
Mm-hmm.
this skin tone color.
Right, right.
He gets whomped.
It's a really intense panel there in the bottom middle. And speaking of like extra balloons, I almost wonder if they said you need to put something there saying indicating that he's still alive because he looks dead there with his eyes rolled
Well,
back
he
like that.
he basically is dead, right? Like he never comes back again in this series. I don't think.
No. Yes, no. I mean, we see more of him, but we never see him back up and about.
Yeah, he's kind of on life support with like
Right. And
Shadow
they're
Lass flying around.
right trying to find help for him. And then he makes like a no, he made like an instantaneous recovery in 4 or something. Like he was still like in a coma or still messed up at the beginning of that, I think. And then he just like jumped up.
Yeah, in that issue they have this kind of weird
Did Glorith do it or something? Like she wished him into health or something?
I don't remember. I remember that there's like they have like word balloons that are just in the void, and it's either people speaking about Monel or it's Monel himself. And there's that character Eltrogand, who is his cousin that gave up his life so that Monel could live or something like that.
Oh, right, right, right,
And yeah, I think you're right. I think that happens, and then he does. He just kind of sits up in bed and he's back.
right,
But I think it must have something to do with, I don't know, some kind of magic stuff that's happening or something, right?
right,
It's
right,
it's before the Mordru verse issue, so it's not because of that. I just don't remember. Even though I've read that issue maybe more times than any of the
right.
others.
It's funny when you start thinking about this stuff really at all, but start thinking about it hard and all the silliness in it. Like, she can't seem to get any help anywhere with all the greatest doctors in the universe. And she knows all these magic characters. Like, why don't you see if White Witch can do something? I mean, these Superman light characters are all vulnerable to magic or whatever.
I think after this issue, you didn't see White Witch again for a long time either.
Was she was she not in the Magic Wars?
I think she came back like halfway through.
Right,
I don't think she was a big player in that.
right. The other thing is, it never even comes up to maybe throw him back into the Phantom Zone. At the end of this series, it's implied that he dies somewhere in one of the last couple issues. Like they show like his life stat thing flatlining.
I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It was a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, if Giffen had plans for him, he probably wouldn't have actually killed him, but maybe, yeah, done a cliffhanger type of scenario.
Right.
So all the big guys are taken out except Brainiac 5. And so he's having, I guess, just a intellectual tete-a-tete with Brainiac 5.
Does it make sense? He says it's your arrogance that first tested the power of time, my power. And he says, not tested, Trapper, broke it. I traveled through time. And he's basically like, whatever, if you say so.
Mm-hmm.
So did he or did he not?
I think he didn't. I think he didn't travel through. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he traveled through time, but it was fake time that Time Trapper invented.
Right.
But I guess Brainiac 5 thinks he can still travel through the real time without the
Right.
Time Trapper. Even if Time Trapper's not in the way, he thinks he could still do it.
Well, we know at least one Legionnaire has legit traveled through time, and that's other than Superman. Cosmic Boy and Night Girl went because they went back to, the real Earth.
Right. I'd have to check back. Is there an explanation for why they were able to go back to the actual
Yeah,
20th century?
I do not remember what it was.
Was that after Death of Superboy, maybe?
No, no, I think it was right before because that's when they were first establishing that they were not the same guy. Because
Oh
I
yeah,
forget
like
what he
Cosmic
was like.
Boy's confused. He's like, "Who is this Superman dude? He doesn't recognize me," etc., etc.
Right, and they're looking in the papers or in the library or something, and they realize there's no Superboy.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a book of this collected so we can understand what's going on with the Time Trapper and see this build up.
Surely it's next in line, right?
I doubt it. Doesn't seem like they've collected any of this. Like none of this Baxter stuff has been reprinted except maybe the Death of Superboy or something. I don't know.
No, I don't think they've ever done that.
Haven't they? Like
Well,
in the reprint of the John Byrne
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, in that it has been. They have. I'm pretty sure they collected like that first arc, the supervillain arc with the Giffen drew the first part of Karate Kid dies.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
they
that's been
did. You're
collected.
right. Yeah.
But the 5 years later stuff, they just did it all in 2 books. I bet they'll do the exact same thing with this.
Oh, maybe. This stuff is just not as good as the 5 years later, though.
Right.
And I don't think it has the same following. Like, they say that in the years since 5 years later came out, like people even outside of Legion fandom kind of appreciate it. And so I
Really?
could maybe see that as some kind of selling point for it. Whereas the Volume 3 Baxter series is
Mm-hmm.
only appeals to Legion readers. except maybe the death of Superboy if you like the Superman mythos a little bit.
Hmm.
I can't imagine anybody really liking most of this series, the third volume. It's a really pretty bad series in general, in my opinion. And as I know the marketing department at DC.
Yeah, not a lot happens. But, I think part of the reason things seem so eventful now all of a sudden is because Paul has decided to leave. He's not just like treading water. He's like, I've got a few things I want to take care of before I go. So,
Yeah, you're probably right. Like the combination of him trying to wrap up stuff and then just like the density that Giffen deals in when he plots
right,
stuff out.
right.
Yeah, could make for some juicier stuff. But this
Hmm.
one has a lot going on, and I think as the final months of the series wear on, like a little bit less starts to happen. They're not as exciting as this one.
What really hurts him is that last arc, Magic Wars, because I don't remember what the reason was. Maybe it seems like he probably took on too much, but the artwork really suffered there towards the end. Like it was rushed.
The last couple or the last one, yeah, it's like Al Gordon comes on, but then he
Hmm.
leaves again. Like they must be trying to get number one of the next series
Right.
really in shape or something.
Yeah, and it looks like he's more of a breakdown guy at that point. Like the
Mm-hmm.
inker is doing most of the heavy lifting by that point, and yeah, it could be because they were getting ready for the new series,
Yeah.
or who like he always has like 3 books at once, so who knows.
Right.
That, by the way, is something I've seen him like in that Legion companion. Like that's the thing he wishes he could go back and change is those last few issues. If he could go back in time and do something different, he wished he could have put more into the drawings of those last few issues
Fix up the Magic Wars, huh?
of the Magic Wars. Yeah.
Time Trapper says, "Look about you. This is the only absolute truth in eternity. The end." And Brainiac 5 has the hubris to say, "Ha!"
Yeah, that's
And
great.
this is pretty cool page where
Mm-hmm.
Time Trapper yells, "You dare!" And he knocks over Brainiac 5.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Very Harvey Kurtzman-y.
yeah, yeah, you're right. But also, this is Giffen has done stuff like this before, where I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, it's almost ambush bug kind of
Right, right.
extremeness.
Yeah, it's a very weird juxtaposition. Like, is this about as serious as superhero comics get, and then it's got the kind of silly lettering.
Right. Yeah, very cartoony. And I guess he just starts turning the world upside down
Mm-hmm.
in annoyance. And here's some more of this cool Giffen blast stuff where you can
Oh
see the
yeah,
time trapper sort of built into it.
yeah. Works better here, I think, than
Yeah, they kind of
a few
figured it out
pages
on this one.
previous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I wonder if maybe there's some time trapper in here that we didn't notice in the coloring or something.
Oh yeah. I guess that could be like is that what like the black there in the center is that like the dark part of his like where his face would be?
Yeah, maybe like right here, and maybe there's some hands or
Yeah, I
something
see. I think I see the
like
hands.
the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess all you need is really this one. Brainiac 5 is like, "You're right. I'm sorry."
Mm-hmm. With green blood.
And while yeah, they're talking, Brainiac 5 pushes a button on his belt, and guess who shows up? Infinite Man. And this is about the coolest he's looked, I guess. Um, he's got this crazy look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool Starfield, deep shadows on his costume. I mean, that's always been there,
Mm-hmm.
but they've done a good job here. I guess somebody got their toothbrush out.
Maybe it's the Maguire influence there, but it looks to me it reminds me of like Stuart Inman's drawing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, like I don't know, like the shadows kind of feather out and disappear into the white. I think is it's kind of like McGuire and Immonen both kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mike DiCarlo does a good job of inking that kind of stuff. He's real
Mm-hmm.
brushy. And now here's
Mm-hmm.
a new juxtaposition where Infinite Man, he's actually towering over Time Trapper now, since we're talking about giant guys. But then Time Trapper flips it around
Right.
and he pulls up Infinite Man out of the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a real clash of the titans here.
Yeah. That's really great.
And speaking of the Kirby collage stuff, he's actually done
Mm-hmm.
it in this.
That's what was making me wonder if he intended it earlier, but
It's a collage of photographs
is that
of
Eisenhower or what are we looking at
I
there?
think it is. I think it's Ike, and it's the sculpture of the guy throwing the disc.
Uh-huh.
And I can't
Like a
really.
biplane or something up there.
Oh
It says
yeah,
F-90.
yeah. I can't really make out the rest. This is maybe is that a train? I don't know. There's
Mm-hmm. Or subway.
just a bunch of stuff. That's for the Infinite Man's power, and then the power of dust and decay is for Time Trapper on this side of the page.
Mm-hmm.
And here's more of this Giffen blast. They've got the Infinite Man shows up pretty well. The Time Trapper panel is not as effective.
Yeah.
And in fact, this next one, the color is off too. Like there's two characters speaking in the midst of the
Mm-hmm.
battle. It's Brainiac 5 and
Oh, I see them. I see them now.
well, they've colored this blob here as if it's the other person in the scene, but
Right.
actually he's here. This is his
Right.
head and torso.
Yeah. Until you mentioned that, I'd never even seen those two figures. I just thought this was like from a distance, and all we're seeing is like some indescript mountains.
Yeah,
And realize it was closer in, and the two figures are getting up.
right. I don't know. I wish Giffen would give the colorist a memo when he's doing this stuff
Right.
because it would make the
Just
comic.
imagine whoever had to color his trencher work.
Yeah. Well, even that was more clear, I think,
Yeah.
than some of these things. This is a really really bad instance. I noticed last time I read it. It's like, oh, that Ron Vidar is here, and he's just colored brown. You can't
Uh-huh.
even tell. You're led to think that
Right.
this is the other person who's speaking, or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is where Ron Vidar winds up catching everybody
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of their big battle. This is kind of crazy colors. I don't know if this is if your art teacher would approve of this color mixture.
The orange or the red and green.
Yeah, red, green, and purple.
It looks much better on the page than the digital one because it's at least it's it's a little desaturated in my copy of it, so they don't clash quite as bad, but they're very bright and loud on
Yeah.
the digital page.
I bet all of this stuff looks really bad in the digital version. Like this,
Yeah.
like this stuff that's a cyan surprint looks like total ass, I'm sure. And this one,
The photo, maybe the collages might look a little better. They might stand out a little more, I guess. But I don't know. Overall, yeah.
this is kind of a weird thing where Ron Vidar is like, it's the beginning of time, but the Guardians warned us that was never to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it's in all the, like the, what's it called? History of the DC universe and all that
Right.
stuff where they show the big hand holding up Earth as the beginning of time. And then
Yeah.
I don't know what that, it's like the eating the forbidden fruit or something.
Yeah.
The DC universe of the Bible story of eating the forbidden fruit.
Right. You'll become comatose or something if you see it.
Yeah.
Like looking at infinity or something.
Well, didn't it open Pandora's box and get evil into the universe or something when they did that? When whoever it was, Krona, is that who it was? Krona, in his hubris, looked back at the beginning of the universe, and the Guardians were pissed, and I don't know, it's something like that.
That's it. I think I've read a little bit of that in the Who's Who, but I haven't actually read the history of the DC universe.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in that, but it may be also like taken from another story, another Green Lantern
Mm-hmm.
comic. I don't
Well, it kind of
remember.
sounds like it was taken from something older, but like it does. It sounds mythological a little bit.
But it's like this sci-fi thing where this guy's looking at a big giant computer screen uh,
Mm-hmm.
of the beginning of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool. I mean, it made an impression. I still remember it. I've only read that thing one time when I was a kid. So, but so Brainiac 5 uses his force field belt to push the Infinite Man right through Time Trapper's time barrier. And Infinite Man
Mm-hmm.
calls back. He's like, "Thank you, Brainiac 5. For this, I forgive you for my birth and damnation."
Yet another sort of nail in the coffin, or another flaw in the upcoming story. The next like year of books is about like him going on trial for using this guy and killing him. But here he is unambiguously saying it's okay. The other weird thing is right before they left, I meant to mention it. Like Polar Boy seems totally cool with them, confiscating that guy's body to use. Like, because he's the one who pisses White Witch off, and she takes off, and she's like, "I don't see the big deal." In the next issue, he's like, "You killed somebody."
Right. He's on the cover and he's like pointing at him. He's
Right,
like, "This is a trial of
right,
Brainiac 5."
right. Whatever. You're just pissed they left without you.
I was just wondering if like Giffen forgot that that was the characterization that he wrote himself for that
Yeah,
sequence. It's kind of
I don't
strange.
know. I don't know. Um, Also, this issue plays a lot with white space, like I guess representing nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have like that encroaching whiteness that was going on when he was bringing about his entropy force to like destroy Mon-El, and then we have the is it like one page before this with like there's only three panels and they're each getting slightly smaller.
Oh yeah.
And he ends up using like white space quite a bit, especially once the universe starts rebooting and temporarily freezing and ending, and there's lots of like blank white panels.
Yeah, they cribbed this for Zero Hour.
Oh, right, right.
Like that, and they had to have just been following Giffen's lead because this is what happens in this issue and then it happens in the issue 4 when
Mm-hmm.
Mon-El kills him, and it's what they
Right.
that's what they do in the issue of the 5 years later's volume 4 series when they're coming up to Zero Hour. I guess that's
Right. The
but
last.
but in the actual Zero
Yeah.
Hour mini series too, I think they use that trope
Yeah.
of like
Yep.
it kind of fading into total
That's right.
whiteness.
And like all the tie-in issues ended that way. They all faded into white,
Right.
almost exactly like that last page where he's like, "This ends now," and he's like, not given the trapper his fatal blow.
Right. That's how that issue ends. That's really
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Like it goes white and then
Mm-hmm.
there's like the letters page, I guess, and then that's
Right.
the end of the issue. And that's about what this is too.
Right.
Um the Legionnaires, yeah, I guess the Infinite Man has done whatever he did to get rid of Time Trapper.
Mm-hmm.
And the Legionnaires, they're in this sort of metaphorical flowing river of time
Mm-hmm.
going into the Time Trapper's face.
Yeah, that's a great effect.
Yeah. But they're also kind of like being flushed down the toilet.
Right. Right. It's, it's like that car. It's like that Cars video where Rick Ocasek takes
Uh-huh.
his face off and like all the water flows out
Right.
with all the little people in there.
And then there's a lot of silly sound effects. There's a zoom, there's a scream, there's a phased. And here they are, they're traveling through time again, like we've seen before and after.
Mm-hmm.
Phased and then plop. And they're
Yep.
back at Legion
Another
headquarters.
another silly sound effect.
And you can see how much or how you can see how wrecked Saturn Girl got when she tried to read the time trapper's mind and it blew up her head. She's in bad shape.
Oh, I never put two and two together there. You think that's a direct effect of that?
Well,
I
that's
guess it could be.
the last time you saw her, it looked like her head was
Right,
on fire.
right. Something that stands out to me that I think is really good in this is like how tough she is about this. Here she is bald and she's indifferent to it because she's like, a warrior or whatever.
I thought it was actually kind of cold. She's like, only four and a half of us returned alive, but it's worth it.
Right. Yeah.
What? I don't give
Yeah.
a crap if one of Duodamsel's stupid bodies got killed. Whatever. It
I
was
agree.
worth it.
I agree with that line.
And Brainiac 5 says, "We destroyed him. I know we did." Oh, and here's another little like correction. You can see that when he calls her Imra, it's a
Mm-hmm.
different letterer. So for some reason, there was a correction here of him
How the hell do
addressing
you
her.
see that?
It's totally different lettering. And I'm sure there were other ones that I overlooked, but I just happened to notice this one. And I don't know what he might have called her instead. Like there wasn't room for it to be Saturn Girl, and they whited it out. But yeah, it's totally a different hand did this
Mm-hmm.
Imra, and I can't quite figure out why. Like, did he call her Babe instead or something?
It being spelled wrong or using the wrong name seems like a pretty good guess. Like, did he call her Loranu or something?
He could have called her Irma, and they might have had to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very easy mistake for a letterer, a letterer to make, a letterer to make. So now they're just back showing, I guess, the end of time and how it's still kind of complete and messed up, but there's just the cloak of Time Trapper remains.
Mm-hmm. By the time I read this, I already knew he'd be back. I had already been reading 5 years later before I had read this, so I never thought that he was ever dead forever. But it's weird, like nothing ever comes of him no longer existing. Like they never try to. The iron well of time is gone. They could go further ahead, or the limitations he was putting on them were no longer there, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I don't think they even really tried time
Mm-hmm.
travel very much after
Right.
this. I think maybe they just felt like, uh, I don't know, like Circadia Senius has his work cut out for him now to correct all that misinformation they had.
You could almost see that as a way of like reinvigorating the series for a while because now they've got to figure out what really happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I vaguely remember them talking about that just in passing,
mhm.
but yeah, I don't think they.
There's
I mean,
also
I'm
just kind of the weird incongruity in that we've elevated him from like a very powerful but mortal villain to like the physical manifestation of entropy. So what happens when you kill entropy? Like, do things not break down anymore? Do people stop dying? Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously he's not that. He's just a some kind of puppet master type of figure who has ultimate control over that. And now he's dead, so I think it just is nature taking its course or something. Must be the thinking there.
I guess, or when he does turn up alive, it's like, did you really think you could kill entropy? Maybe that is how he came back. I don't remember. I mean, I doubt many people read this were convinced this was the last we'd ever see of it.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, it would be. It does seem pretty final, except they show his cloak there,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's a good enough issue that you could not go back to Time Trapper again, and it would probably be okay.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess what I was saying, yeah, he sort of straddles between being like a powerful villain and like this force in the universe. Why would you play up the force in the universe part of it if you were going to kill him? Because then it's like you just killed death or something.
I guess I think of it as him being an evil manipulating force and not actually the force.
It does make sense, but then he's sort of boasting or exaggerating or lying about what he is, because he seems to be kind of saying over and over again that, he is entropy. Which, supervillains lie and exaggerate all the time. I'm trying to remember how he came back. Like, he was trapped inside of Mon-El or something. Like a fragment of his being was in his mind or something. Like,
That's right. That there was. I remember they're looking at his little life force monitor,
mm-hmm.
and they are like, "We detect two life forces still in him, and actually, there's a third one, and the third one is that Eltro guy, Mon-El's
Right.
cousin."
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the second one's Time Trapper. And then, but Mon-El wakes up and somehow gets zapped back to the end of time here, and he meets Time Trapper in a very weakened state.
Right.
And I guess I don't really remember the explanation for any of that. There must be some kind of explanation, but it would just work as a coda for this issue in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to read this and then, like, imagine that some years pass, and then read that issue number 4
Mm-hmm.
as like the real finale, the real final death of Time Trapper.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could look at it that way. Like there's still this loose end of a little bit of Time Trapper essence living inside of Mon-El, and Mon-El
Mm-hmm.
comes out of his coma and wipes him out.
Yeah. And everything else.
Right.
Well, that's it, right?
Pretty good comic. That's it.
Yeah, definitely one of the best.
Legion number 50. And the Legion will never be the same.